In my late teens, I had a nightmare. I just remember walking by a ditch and seeing a dead woman with red hair laying face down in the water. All the next day, I felt unsettled by it. A week later, I read in the paper about a murderer in a neighboring town. This guy had kidnapped a young woman with red hair. Her body was found in a ditch, exactly like my dream. When I saw her picture in the news, I realized she went to my high school, a year older than me. I didn't know her, but recognized her. The coincidence creeped me out so much, it was a decade before I shared this story with anyone. I can remember sitting in the hallway upstairs in my house when I was a kid, looking up and seeing two fully black people, shadow people I'd assume, run up the staircase in front of me into the bathroom. I followed and looked behind the shower curtain and nothing was there. Another day I was in the same hallway and glanced into my brother's room and seen a hand reach out from beside the doorway, in the room behind the wall connected to the door, and it was motioning me to come with long old fingers. It was just one finger pointing up, bending for me to come. I got scared and ran downstairs. When I was a kid, I had lots and lots of plushies. One of them was a talking Ernie from Sesame Street that wasn't functioning properly. You had to absolutely bang it on a table for it to say, "I feel great." Our old house in my home country was housed with spirits, but not bad ones, or at least that's what my parents said. I never witnessed or felt anything until this one time. When I was 8, I overheard my parents saying something along the lines that my Ernie plushie spoke every time they talked about my grandma. I got irrationally scared, which made my parents hide Ernie in a huge box along with my other unused plushies. One time when I was playing hide and seek, I was hiding with my childhood friend, Jay, in our spare room where the box of plushies was. While we were hiding, I figured might as well tell him the story about the haunted Ernie and my just recently passed away grandma. In the middle of the story, we heard Ernie say, "I feel great," in the box on the top shelf. There's no way that it was moved. And even if it was somehow moved by gravity, you need to bang Ernie on the table to make it talk. We screamed and ran outside. I had this couch with a couple of springs missing. They popped up and my dad removed them from the inside. So you sat really low on that section, almost as if you were getting sucked into the couch. My brother and I used to fight over who had to sit there when watching TV downstairs. I usually made him do it. One day I had some friends over for a sleepover. I was on the couch. My buddies were on yoga mats on the floor. I felt a kick in the night, thought it was one of my buddies and told him politely to F off. Another kick right under my back. How is that possible? I got up, turned on the lamp, and my buddies were both passed out. I went back to the couch, took off the cushion and looked. Nothing. Get back on the couch, turn off the lamp behind me and try to go to sleep. It must have been only a few minutes when one of my friends whispered who the other dude was when I turned the light on. I said, "What?" He said something like, "You turned on the lamp. I was pretending I was asleep because I thought it was your parents. I saw someone standing behind the couch. It wasn't your dad." We then all got freaked out, ran upstairs to my room and slept there instead of in the basement. A few weeks later, I get home from school and my dad is tossing the couch in the back of his pickup. I assumed he bought a new one, but no. He said he was sick of seeing it in his house because it was his dad's, and his dad used to rough him up when he was younger, usually by poking him in the back where his shirt would hide the bruises. When I was in 2nd grade, we lived in a huge house in the woods. We call it the castle now because it was that big. Every room was full of huge windows and it even had a tower with nothing but windows on every side. Anyway, we lived there for about a year and found out the place was very haunted by one spirit. It was a tall, fleshy man. Multiple people in the family had experiences with him. So I lay out the separate times we saw him. The house was on a farm, so we sold cattle and pigs and whatnot. One night a cow got out of the pen somehow and was roaming in the field at night. So my older brothers, I'll rename them, Adam, Brian, Chase, and my dad went out to corral him back into the pen. The cow obviously wasn't a fan and was trying his best to get away from them. At one point, the cow was running full speed away from Adam, and then it took a 90-degree turn to the left, screaming. After they finally got him into the pen, Brian told Chase he was lucky the cow didn't run him over when he was sprinting, and Adam and Chase said, "What?" There was no one there in front of the cow. Brian had seen something in the path of the cow while being chased by Adam, and that's why the cow turned so sharply. Chase and my dad were driving up the long driveway to the house, and Dad hit the brakes and stopped, staring at the house. From where they were, they could see only the tower, a place we came to find out the spirit loved to spend its time. My dad asked Chase, "Is anybody home?" Chase replied, "No, the house should be empty." My dad floors it up the hill and runs inside the house to the tower to find it empty, with all the windows open. Chase was confused and kept asking what was wrong, and my dad said, "I saw someone in the tower when we were on the driveway. The house was empty." Once I was sleeping with my face to the window, and in my dream I was watching myself up close and saw the spirit put his face up to my second-story window and start tapping tapping it, staring at me with no eyes. Tap, tap, tap. I was screaming at myself to wake up, and I finally did. I got up with a start and still heard the tapping. It stopped when I looked at the window. Once Brian was up late playing Halo. In the bedroom there were 3 beds. One in the left corner, one in the middle, and one in the right corner of the room. All 3 beds shared a wall. Brian was sitting in the middle bed. Chase came inside the room, walked over to the bed on the left, and went to sleep. About an hour went by and Chase woke up and said, "WTF?" Brian looked to see him on the bed to the right. This really freaked them both out because the only way Chase could have been able to move beds was if he went over Brian's head. When I was a kid, I spent a lot of time at my grandma's house. Both my parents worked long hours, so her place was like a second home. She was a tough old woman, rail thin but strong. Sometimes I'd watch her going about her routine and wonder if she was some kind of witch. She just had a witchy way about her. But, of course, that might just be what resourcefulness looks like to a kid. Anyway, her house didn't help. It was old. Everything in it was old, and it was dark. I don't know how best to describe it other than to say I always felt that being inside my grandma's house wasn't much different from being outside of it. In any season, the windows in the house would stay jammed open with old bent screens, which had to be shimmed into place with old slats from some discarded Louvre door. Grandma had this rusty pot-belly stove right smack in the middle of her bedroom. I remember constantly dodging it as I ran through the house playing. That night, she'd load the stove up with one great big chunk of hickory, and you could see the flames licking through the cracks. I lay on the floor with my sleeping bag, positioning myself so that the stove was in between me and Grandma's bed. Facing this direction meant that I could easily see the window at the foot of her bed. It was like a nightlight for me. Everything in that house was black at night, unless there was a window nearby. So there I lay one night. It was chilly, and I remember having trouble sleeping because the moonlight coming through the window was so bright. It was late, which meant the stove wasn't roaring anymore. Besides my grandma's breathing, the whole house was dead silent. It was just the 2 of us. No one else was in the house. Without any warning, a tall black figure calmly walks from the shadows at the far side of the room. He passed between the stove and bed, across the floor, just a foot from my head, and out through the doorway into the kitchen. I was petrified, couldn't move an inch. This may sound crazy, but I had felt like a burglar was in the house. I'd like to think I would have moved, or shouted, or something. I didn't think it was a burglar though. No specific reason why. It just felt wrong. I don't think I fell asleep that night. All I remember is staring at the kitchen door for a long, long time. When my grandma woke up, she rolled out of bed and grabbed the fire poker. I sat up and began to tell her what I saw. Like I said, I always felt like my grandma was a little bit witchy. After I finished telling her about the tall man, she just poked the coals of the stove and said, haven't seen him in a long time. Lived in a pretty rural area, forested with a small brook, chickens out back, garden in the front. Don't want to share a room with my little brother anymore. Getting old downstairs study turned into a bedroom. Very bad idea. Many years of creepy experiences that were all in my head from being on the bottom floor. 4 a.m., very dark, but Doggo wants toilet. We don't have a door for him, so I have to let him out and wait and let him back in. Dog walks into pitch blackness in the front garden. I stare at the dark shapes waiting for him to come back. Suddenly, from the drive to the left, a man-shaped dark smudge starts walking into the garden, around the tree, through the garden, and around to the back of the house. I'm crapping myself. No sign of Dog. Dog is German Shepherd Rottweiler crossbreed. Surely he would attack an intruder. Waiting impatiently for Dog. So scared. Come on, Dog. Scary figure is here somewhere. Don't want to be indoor waiting. The figure appears again, back in the way it came. You alright? Username here. It's my uncle. Dog returns. No bark, because he knew Uncle. Uncle leaves without another word. Okay, so the next day I question as to why my uncle turns up at 4 a.m. at our house. Apparently he feeds the chickens at 4 in the morning and has been doing this every night for years. The part that remains unexplained to this day, to me, is why on earth he did it. He retired early so he didn't have to work, and we lived way away. So why drive to our house in the middle of the night to feed the chickens? Why not just come during the day, say hello to his family? Weird.